Hello everyone, it is such a pleasure for me to meet you all here on the third international conference on business, education, social and technology. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Elvia Jakfar. I am from Faculty of Engineering at the University of Teuku Umar, Malabo, Aceh, Indonesia. And then to complete this study, I work together with my friends. She is Elvia Jakfar and she is from Faculty of Psychology at Gajah Mada University, Jakarta, Indonesia. There are three chapters or three big points that I want to discuss in today's conference. The first is about introduction. So, as we know that university students who took education as their major, they called pre-service teachers. So, pre-service teachers, they need to master pedagogical competence, which means it is about the knowledge of teaching and how to apply the knowledge of teaching into practices. So to assess their pedagogical competence, they need to do teaching practice, and then teaching practice it can be done in Indonesia. It can be done for about 3 until 6 months or even years. It depends on the agreement between school and the university. So why all these three things should be done by pre-service teachers? Because at the end they will be graduated or they will be qualified as teachers. So why I come up with this idea? Because I found out there are limited studies conducted to find out about pre-service teachers' perceptions toward their pedagogical competence in Indonesia. So it is, I think, very interesting to bring this idea into study. Well, first the next one, let us discuss about what pedagogical competence is. So pedagogical competence is defined as the ability of individual to use a coordinate synergistic combination of tangible resources such as instrument, materials, for example books, articles and cases, and technology such as software and hardware. And intangible resources, for example, knowledge, skill, and experiences. So to achieve effective, it is all to achieve efficiency and effectiveness in pedagogy. So what teaching practice is? Some of us might not know what teaching practice is. Teaching practice is considered as useful activity to implement the theories students have learned into practice. Darling Harmon identifies that teaching practice is one of the pedagogical cornerstones of our teacher education. So what qualified teacher is? A qualified teacher, as defined by Schulman, is someone who has the ability to arrange successful learning situations, the knowledge about the subject matter, and the knowledge about the goals of education. These qualities are commonly related to pedagogical competence. So these three things are related, interrelated, because when the students have these three things, we hope that they are qualified to be qualified teachers. So as I mentioned before, there were limited study I found out about pre-service teachers' perceptions what the pedagogical competence. So I would like to find out about their perceptions in pre-teaching, in while teaching, and post-teaching. So there are three big points in my research questions in this study. Meanwhile, in my research questions, there are 10 sub-competency indicators that I assessed. It is all related to pre-teaching, while teaching, and post-teaching. In pre-teaching, there are 3 sub-points. It is aimed to find out this perception on understanding students' characteristics, understanding theories and learning principles, and developing curriculums. In while teaching, I'd like to find out about their perception on conducting educative learning activities, using current information, using technology, and communicating effectively to the students. And then in the post-teaching, I would like to find out about their perceptions on conducting assessment and evaluations, and then their perceptions on using learning outcome, and the last one is their perceptions on conducting learning reflection. So all these things, all these three big things are divided into 10 competency indicators that I assessed in my study. Well, the next one is about my research methodology. To find out about my research questions, so I employed qualitative method. So as we know that qualitative method is appropriate to be employed to identify research participant perceptions or even opinion. So I think because I would like to assess students' perceptions, so I chose qualitative method, and it is the best way to answer my research questions. Beside that, in order to collect the data, I tried to use semi-structured interview, and then invited 6 research participants, and then all these research participants, they have completed teaching practice at school, and the reason why I chose them because they might have rich data to participate in my study. Then the last one is how I analyze my data. So the first one, I try to transcribe the data and then code them, and then the last one is I try to categorize them into some categorizes. Well, the next one is about the findings and discussion. Well, in the findings and discussions, because as I mentioned before, there are 3 big research questions that I want to find out, and then these 3 big research questions are divided into 10 sub research questions. As we can see here, pre-teaching, it goes to question number 1 until number 3, while teaching goes to for question number 4 to 7, and post-teaching goes to question 8 until 10. So here we can see that perception on understanding students' characteristic. All students mention that they are able to understand student characteristic. Meanwhile, on understanding theory and learning principles, only 1 student who mentioned that they were able to understand theory and learning principle. For the questions number 3 until number 7, I'm probably say that all the pre-service teachers mentioned that they were able to understand all of these 4 things. So all of them say that they are good in understanding these 4 things. Meanwhile, in this for the questions 8, 9 until 10, it is about post-teaching. Only, yeah, I could say that partly of them were able to understand this thing about conducting assessment and evaluation, utilizing learning outcome, and conducting learning reflection. So now we come to the conclusion. So based on these findings and discussion, I conclude that pre-service teachers in pre-teaching has good development in understanding student characteristics and developing curriculum, but low development in understanding theories and learning principles. Pre-service teachers, and the last one, pre-service teachers in the next one, pre-service teachers in well teaching have good development in conducting educative learning activities, using current information, using technology, and performing effective communication. And the last one, pre-service teachers in post-teaching shows that there were only 3 students who were able to conduct assessment and evaluation, use learning outcome, and conduct learning reflection. So it partly shows that students were able to understand the post-teaching instrument. So I can conclude that in this study, I can conclude that pre-service teachers' competence toward their pedagogical competence in pre-teaching, while teaching, and post-teaching assessed with 10 items of pedagogical